How do you deal with leg cramps on a carnivore or keto diet? Well, I'm a massage therapist. I've been one for over 21 years. Let's see if I can help. What's shaking bacon? My name is Bruno Panucci. I hope you're doing well. So I started this 80-20 challenge, 80% fat, 20% protein. I've been doing multiple small meals a day, and I gotta say, it's been working pretty well. I feel good. I actually almost feel as good as when I fast. I'm a big fan of fasting, despite what some people out there might think, because I love the way I feel when I fast. It just doesn't agree with me personally. So when I do these multiple small meals a day, it works pretty well. My blood sugar is always in a typically good range. My keto numbers are in a low range, but I'm still getting results. So I'm running with it for now. I don't think you have to have high numbers in ketosis to get results for weight loss. I forgot to mention I had a carnivore meetup in Scranton, Pennsylvania last Friday. Now this was going to be about $100 for the meal. I had 3 smaller meals before that, and that day at dinner, I had a bigger meal. I still kept to my 80-20. I had lots of fat and I had butter with it. It was pretty good. I met a few new people at this dinner. It was really nice. It was hosted by Dr. Lisa Wiederman. Of course, quickly afterwards, I was back on track. Now, I had planned for this because I booked this well in advance. I booked it a few weeks ago. So knowing how much that dinner was, I wasn't going to pay over $100 just for 6 ounces of meat. But I did forget to mention that in my last few videos. So as far as these leg cramps go, they can be pretty bad, can't they? Now, I've always found, personally with my leg cramps, I have a weird history with leg cramps. I always found whenever it was in the calf or going into the foot, they hurt, but it wasn't too bad. It was pretty manageable. Yes, it was tight, it was sore, but I could quickly walk it off. Maybe within a minute, it was gone. Sometimes they last a few minutes and they come and go, but when they're in the hamstrings, they've been known to take me down to the ground. So my brother and I used to always joke around when we were teenagers, whenever we were wrestling or playing around or goofing around, and one of us got a leg cramp, it was like we were all down to business. One guy would be lying on his back and the other guy would be stretching out his leg cramp, even though we were just fighting or goofing around literally seconds before. The thing I noticed I struggled with in my teens, I noticed through my mid-20s and on, it got really bad, and I understand now why that was. In fact, when I proposed to my ex-wife, we're in the middle of a nice restaurant and I got down on one knee and I proposed to her, and she started getting all overwhelmed and emotional, and I was like, hurry up, I'm getting a leg cramp. And in my 30s, it was always an issue. It was typically my hamstrings. It was pretty bad, but I noticed in my very late 30s, once I started sticking to a more low carb diet more consistently, and then eventually very consistently in my 40s, I found these leg cramps were getting pretty bad. And these leg cramps escalated. So not only were they more intense, they got into my hip flexors and adductors. So your hip flexors, when you're standing there and you bring your knee to your chest, there's a few muscles in particular that do that. So the front of my hips would get these leg cramps. And the inside of the legs, the thighs, the inside of the thighs, when you bring your knees together, those are your adductor muscles. And those muscles would cramp as well. And I tell you, when I got those leg cramps, it was a whole other world of pain. I would literally go into a sweat. I couldn't stand. I would usually fall back down to the couch or down onto the floor. I would go into a cold sweat. My blood pressure would drop. It was almost like I was going into shock. This pain was intense. And I thought for years I was the only one that had these odd leg cramps. And it turned out at one point I talked to the chiropractor I work with, and he said, oh, I get these leg cramps every now and then. And he described them exactly the way I get them. And I was like, I thought I was the only guy. So if you don't have someone to help stretch that out, it's pretty bad. And I've had some times where I fell onto the couch after standing up. I'd get this leg cramp on the front of my hips and in my adductors, and I would fall back to the couch. And I would lie on the couch and I would try and stretch it out. So I was trying to open my body up like I was in a standing straight position, but I was lying down. And then my hamstrings would cramp. And then I'd think, oh no, because now I'd be lying there and I couldn't go in any direction. And I was just lying there in horrible pain as my legs in the front and backs were cramping really bad. So I found I eventually just had to wait it out. And I often didn't have anyone there to help stretch it out. And you couldn't stretch it out because if you're stretching out one side, you're making the other side worse. So it was pretty bad. Now, I found through the years, there are some things I can guarantee will bring on triggers for my leg cramps. If I sit in a chair for too long, typically a chair at like a kitchen table. So if I'm at a restaurant sitting too long, I'll get a leg cramp. If I go to the theater, I'll get a leg cramp. Even if I sit in a theater where the seats recline, I'll still get a leg cramp. So for the next 5 minutes after I stand up, I'll be harboring this leg cramp for a while. I'll be trying to walk it off and I'll start walking with a really stiff leg. I got one after this carnivore dinner because I was sitting for like 5 hours straight. And if I don't get up and walk around maybe every hour or so, I'm setting myself up for a leg cramp. Fortunately with those, it's typically just in my hamstring, so it's pretty manageable pain. For me, it's pretty manageable compared to the leg cramps I get in the front of my legs. Those are really bad. It's a whole new level of pain. Let me know in the comments below what type of leg cramps you get and how bad they get. Sometimes it can take people right out, and it can happen sometimes in some really inconvenient times. They usually happen to people while they're sleeping at night. So what's going on at nighttime that this seems to be bothering people? I have a couple theories I'm going to expand on later on in this video. But for now, let's talk about what lots of my clients and lots of carnivores out there say works for them. Now, some of my clients get relief whenever they start taking magnesium or potassium or tweaking their salt intake. The reason why this can help is those are minerals. The reason why I think people are dealing with leg cramps when they do a carnivore or keto diet is we don't have carbohydrates in our body. Now, of course, as you know, carbohydrates keep the body hydrated, right? They keep the tissues, the soft tissues hydrated. So we're flushing a lot of that out. When people lose their first 10 pounds on a diet, that's typically what they're losing is water weight because they've cut out carbohydrates from the diet. So they lose all this water. And now on an extreme extended period of this, what happens is you're a little more prone to leg cramps. So the cells in the body, especially in the muscles, just aren't getting the electrolytes that they used to. Our bodies seem to have a different balance when trying to figure out electrolytes, and it makes us more prone to getting leg cramp. Now, there's been some things that I find work well for other carnivores in the community, as well as my clients I've had through the years who get chronic leg cramps, especially when it's at night. So magnesium or potassium or salt. I like Redmond's sea salt. I find that seems to make a bit of a difference, though I haven't tried putting it to the test. But since I've been having it, my leg cramps don't bother me nearly as much. But that's not what cured me of my leg cramps. The reason why salt, magnesium, and potassium tend to work for people is because they're minerals. Magnesium is typically the one that helps relax the muscle, so that's a really good one to take. Potassium is a kind of mineral that's good for endurance activities. So when you're doing an activity like running and you start getting stitches, your body's kind of stressed for fuel and it needs not just water. And so when you're going for a while and you start getting these cramps, that's often an area that's struggling to get oxygen and nutrients. So if you try supplementing with potassium before you go out and do any of these exercises, it's probably a good way to go. As far as dealing with cramps, magnesium seems to be a great way to deal with muscle soreness, delayed onset muscle soreness from exercising, or when you're getting a leg cramp and you're in the middle of a spasm. So it's something you can try. You can also go out and try and find some mineral blends out there. Now, the interesting thing about mineral blends is I saw a mineral supplement out there once. It was a liquid, and I thought, cool, I like that. It's a liquid. It's going to absorb really nicely into the body. And I looked at the ingredients, and the only ingredient, sea salt water. I kid you not. Some company just bottled sea salt water and decided to sell it for a ridiculously expensive price. But if it works, why not? Now, what I've always found happens to me whenever I start taking any minerals of any kind is I'll start getting leg cramps. It'll bring on leg cramps for the first 2 weeks of adapting to taking these minerals. And then after I've adapted, after about a week and a half to 2 weeks, my leg cramps go away and I do pretty good. And then when I eventually stop taking those minerals, I'll start getting the leg cramps as I go through the withdrawals, adapting to not having those minerals in my diet again. Now, I've noticed over time that my leg cramps, while I'm on the supplements or when I'm off the supplements, really don't feel any different. They happen just as frequently, except for I'm guaranteeing I'm going to go through about a week or two of horrible discomfort as I go on and off the minerals. So for me, I don't think that's a good way to go. I don't think it's a great way to go for most people because to me, it's a Band-Aid on the situation. Some of you people out there might have heard of Karen Miles. She's a carnivore out there. She's friends with Jackie Jam and Kelly Hogan. Now she finds typically if she cramps at night in her legs and it wakes her up, and it's a real persistent problem some people have, she finds that if she flexes her abs and her core in an isometric contraction, that it helps relieve the pain. Now, she took a poll on Instagram at one point, and this obviously isn't scientific, but it's just anecdotal. But she found, I think it was 60 some odd % of people got relief from that. It might have even been higher than that. So if you find that helps you, that's something else you can try. I also found weight training is something that's pretty good to manage my muscle cramps. If I do HIIT workouts or weight training for the first week or two, my legs are going to be prone to leg cramps if I do certain exercises like a leg curl. Just being on the machine, the first few reps or the first couple sets will trigger leg cramps, and I have to really go into it slow. Once my body and muscles have adjusted to that, I can do my third and fourth set no problem. But the first set or two, I have to take it easy, I have to take it slow, get a few underway, and then I can raise the weight, and then I can do the set like normal. After doing that for a few weeks, I don't deal with leg cramps anymore. I've always found there's a few guaranteed triggers for my leg cramps. One of them, like I said, is sitting in a chair. The other one is if I lie down on my left side on a couch. Now, I found when I sit up and I go to stand from a squatting position, that's when I get the front of my legs to cramp. And it's really bad. It's almost a guaranteed issue for me. If I've been lying down for an hour, that'll happen. So I typically just don't lie down on the couch. I can lie down on my right side and it doesn't happen, but not my left side. Lots of these examples I've given to treat leg cramps are just Band-Aid treatments. There are ways to try and deal with the existing leg cramps. Everyone knows to stretch out the muscle. That's a no-brainer. It's your instinct to try and fight the stretch. I learned in college that's something you're not supposed to do, stretch out a cramp. But that being said, when you have a cramp, the reality is most people are going to try and stretch it out. It makes the most sense. So at this point, I'm going to discuss what I find fixes the core of the problem, hydration. Now, this is what I found works for me best of all. I used to drink a lot of water. I still drink a lot of water, but I used to drink a lot of water at once. I would drink a big glass of water really fast. I would drink a regular glass of water really fast. And I found if I drank too much all at once, kind of like I was guzzling it, guaranteed I'd get leg cramps that day. Even if I had anything from 1.5 liters or 2 liters of water a day up to 5 liters of water a day. Didn't matter how much or how little water I was getting typically. The problem was how much I was drinking all at once. So I can have 4 or 5 liters spread out all through the day and I won't get any leg cramps if I just portion size it and I try not to have too much all at once. So if I drink 8-ounce glass really fast, it might not bother me. But if I finish, say, 12 or 16 ounces really fast, guaranteed I'll get leg cramps for the next 2 nights. If I try slowing that down and pacing it out throughout the whole day, little bits here, little bits there, all day long, I can easily have 4 or 5 liters of water in a day. My urologist recommends it because I've had kidney stones in the past, and he said you have to have at least 3 liters of water a day for a guy your size. Whenever I have more than 3 liters a day, I get horrible leg cramps. He's like, I don't care. And I was like, well, I do, because these leg cramps actually hurt as much as the kidney stones did. He sort of dismissed that, but it's true. When I get the leg cramps in the front of my legs and then on the inside of my legs, it takes me right down and I feel like I'm about to go into shock. I've been in shock before, and I'm telling you, it's a very similar feeling. You break out in this cold sweat and you get really weak and nauseous, and everything starts getting dizzy when the pain gets bad enough. So I started to pay attention to if I was overhydrating. You can overhydrate. You drink too much water and you're flushing the electrolytes out of your body. Our electrolyte balance is, maybe you might say, more sensitive as a carnivore or someone who's doing keto, because we've knocked carbohydrates out of our body. So we can still get a lot of water. We just have to better manage how frequently we get it, and more importantly, the amount we get when we do drink. I found this had the best results above everything else to even prevent it from happening in the beginning. So if you can get to the point where you can manage your water intake and start playing around with it, see how that affects your leg cramps if this is what you're struggling with. Your needs are different now that you don't have carbohydrates in your diet. And I'm not saying drink less, I'm not saying drink more, though I always believe you should make sure you're getting enough water. So that brings up another question. How much water do you know to get in a day? Well, I've always used this rule like this. If your urine is more like apple juice, you're dehydrated. If your urine is clear, that's not good either. We want lemonade color, not clear and not apple juice in color. That's how you know if you're overhydrated or underhydrated. So work accordingly with that. I used that rule for years. So that being said, it still was only part of the equation. The other part of the equation was making sure I just didn't drink too much all at once. Like I said, I could handle 8 ounces at a time, not too bad, but I can't handle 12 ounces at a time. And on a hot day, I'm going to be more prone to doing that than I would be on a day in the winter. Making sure I don't put myself in the situations where I've been sitting too long, making sure I don't put myself in a position where I've been lying on my left side too long, and also making sure that I don't drink too much all at once. I want to drink a lot of water. Like I said, I can still have 4 or 5 liters through the day. I just can't have it in large quantities all at once. I think part of the problem as well for people who are getting leg cramps at night is it's a circulation problem. Your circulation has slowed down so much that your muscles in your legs, where the circulation might be a little bit less, is going to make your legs prone to cramping. So after so much time, when you're in a really deep sleep at like 3 in the morning and your circulation is probably at its lowest, so what can you do to manage that? Put an extra sheet or blanket on your legs at night. So even if you only have a sheet above you or nothing above you, but you have something on your legs, that'll help with circulation. So keep that in mind. It will help manage that. I still get the odd leg cramp here and there, but typically I don't get them anymore. And if I do get them, I make sure that my legs are a little warmer at night than the rest of my body. So that's easy to manage. Now you might have to keep the room just a little bit cooler, but it should help. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it if you give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Leave a comment again if you deal with leg cramps and what you found works for you. Try some of this advice that I've given. Most importantly, I just want to recommend, try paying attention to your water intake. I've noticed whenever I recommend that to people, they notice a big difference in their cramps, and what they have to do at that point is start getting a little more fine-tuned with it. Anyway, thanks a lot and take care. Bye-bye.